Freaky is written and directed by Christopher Landon and stars Vince Vaughn, Catherine Newton, and among others. And this tells the tale of a serial killer that ends up pretty much, as you see from the trailer, switching bodies with a teenage girl named Millie, who's played by Catherine Newton, and it pretty much becomes race against time that these two have to pretty much, well, the girl ends up having to stop this curse from becoming permanent for her to stay in the serial killer's body, as the curse has to do with this dagger that the killer ends up using that causes them to switch bodies. And it pretty much also becomes a series of events where while she's in the body of the serial killer's mind ends up going to her body, and she has to stop everything happening with this in stopping her the killer that's in her body from trying to cause mayhem. And it becomes a race against time before pretty much the curse involves it to where she would have to stop him before she ends up becoming permanently stuck in that serial killer's body. Now, here's a little backstory. This movie was actually directed by Christopher Landon, who brought us the first two Happy Death Day movies, and I'll admit that when the first Happy Death Day movie came out, I actually didn't think it was that bad of a movie, a lot better than expected, but it still really felt like it could have been a lot better had they would have used the R rating, because when it comes to slasher films, I feel like it's always been better that they use an R rated to actually showcase what slasher films can do. And while the first movie, I still thought it was clever with some of the way they do the whole Groundhog Day approach, and it did have some clever humor that I thought really worked in that genre, it still held it back a lot from being fully great, from being fully great, because it was neutered by the PG-13 rating. And I wasn't the biggest fan of the second Happy Death Day, even though there was things about it that I still liked about the movie, but it was definitely a way step down compared to the first one. And once again, it was neutered by the fact that it didn't have PG-13. And it seems like we've been in this trend lately where the company that's done these movies, Blumhouse Productions, they've been known for doing a lot of these neutered PG-13 level type of horror films, and just don't ever go for making it right to show more of what you can do with the actual rating and stuff. That was my problem I had when they did with that was one of my biggest issues I had with the remake of Black Christmas last year, among the rest of the movie itself, because even with the rating, it wouldn't have saved the film, but if it could have at least made it as a slasher film. And then, they did the same thing again with that Fantasy Island movie, where it's probably could have helped with an R rating and stuff. And it's Blumhouse to me has been hit and miss when it comes to their movies, because there are some movies that I like that they've done, and Get Out and the second Purge movie and stuff like that, and there's a lot of their other ones though have been pretty terrible from what I've seen. A lot of them, especially their last three movies I've watched, from Black Christmas, Fantasy Island, and now just from last watching their soft reboot sequel version of The Craft that they brought out, that I just did a review not too long ago. So my expectations going into this film were a little bit hindered because of their track record and stuff, but it did have some things going into it that I was actually really interested in, especially seeing Vince Vaughn, because I've liked the guy a lot in a lot of movies, and I think that the novelty of seeing him being able to play the slasher villain, and being able to basically his comedic timing and the way that he has to pretty much act like the girl in the film, I thought is really got me interested in the way they played it out. And it also got me really interested in the fact that now the director was finally giving us an R-rated slasher film of what he should have done with the other two films. So that is one of the two things that got me pretty much interested from the trailers and stuff. And and after upon seeing the film, I can honestly say, this so far I think is the best movie that the director has done so far. I liked it I liked it more than the other two Happy Death Day movies, because now it finally seems like there's a lot you can do more with an R-rated slasher film. And this movie generally surprised me. Now, it's not great by any means, because it does have some flaws that I'll get into with it, but it is definitely an entertaining film that I can recommend. And finally, the director got what I've been anxious, but I've been actually really wanting to see what they could do out of with, as a slasher film the right way. Now, to give my pros, I will say that one of the biggest things that stood out for me the best was Vince Vaughn's performance, because not only was he very intimidating as the killer himself when he first starts out, and because if you've seen Vince Vaughn and some of his other stuff that he's done, especially in movies like Cell Block and Brawl and Cell Block 99 and things like that, he has really shown himself to be quite a more serious actor over the years, and he really plays it pretty well with his, not only his, his stature with him being a pretty tall guy, but also just the way that he is a very sneaky type of slasher villain, which I really enjoyed, especially out in the, not going to spoilers, but when they first start the movie out like that, his presence is definitely intimidating. And it's even more of a highlight when throughout the film when he actually switches places with the girl and the girl's in his body, where he pretty much has to act like that girl. He does have some really great comedic timing that not only made me smile, but it made me laugh out loud a lot. And his presence was just such a joy to watch on screen. And his physicality and the way that he's having to, get all the movements and stuff, and having to basically get used to this body for now. It had some comedic stuff that I just really I laughed my ass off with. And I got really commend him for that. And I also enjoyed the girl, Catherine Newton. She was actually one of those kind of girls that her character is meant to be like, she's basically before the whole body switch starts, she's just a normal girl that's in high school and stuff, and she's having to get bullied a lot of the time. So you feel for her trying to pretty much, try to get through everything, and you feel like you feel like she needs to basically get payback. And one of the things that this movie does do that I enjoyed was the way that they actually pull that off when the whole switch around comes to where when the killer gets inside her body, it ends up pretty much she ends up getting payback on the people that torment her, which I thought really worked well with that. And I thought that her performance overall was good. But I'll be honest too, I'm not really the biggest fan of the girl from other films, because when I first seen her in movies like Paranormal Activity 4 and last year when she did that Pokemon Detective Pikachu, I wasn't really a big fan of her. I just, for some reason, she just didn't really, her acting just wasn't that on par with some of her other films. But here I think that she finally found her foot, and she was able to really shine with her performance in this. And it really seemed like she also had some fun playing in the role of the killer part, because when she ends up changing herself and starting to look more like you see a trailer where she's all dolled up and stuff, and she's wearing the coat and everything, she really does pull off the look pretty well. And I think that in her presence, the way that she's around other people and stuff, her intimidation and stuff, I thought really worked well. So I thought she was definitely a good bright spot in this one. Now, I will say too, the other thing I got to give credit for with the director was that he did pay some good homage to other slasher films, especially in the beginning, like with movies like Halloween and Friday the 13th and stuff. And I like the little nods they do to those slasher films that I thought really worked. And I got to really commend them for setting up certain places when it comes to setting up certain parts with the slasher feel that makes you really get into the mood of it. And while it is predictable in a lot of scenes, and you pretty much know where the jump scares and stuff are coming for, just the way it's shot and the way it's lit and the time and everything, it's what you pretty much expect from a slasher film. And I got to really commend the director on doing that. And one of my other biggest things I got to really appreciate the most is this one, they upped the fucking brutality like crazy. Unlike Happy Death Day with the other two films, this one you finally get what you want out of a slasher film, of what the director should have done. And there are some pretty over-the-top kills that, while can be exaggerated, they are still pretty fucking brutal. And I was really surprised in a lot of the stuff that they got away with in this movie. And, not going to spoil anything, but one of them I was just like, whoa. I'd hate to have something, happen in a certain area where that person got hit or whatever. But it really, it's what you expect on what a slasher film needs to do right. Give you some good kills, keep the story pretty simple, and that's what they do. even though there's a con to that I will get into, and keep it the bare basics of a slasher film. And it does have a good fun vibe. And the humor that's sprinkled in, that's throughout the film, does blend well. But there is that is to an extent, and that's where I kind of lead more into my cons now. While I did find the performances, good with Vince Vaughn and Catherine Newton, and especially the comedic timing of Vince Vaughn and the shenanigans that he gets into as the girl inside his body, I did feel like some of the supporting cast, mainly the girl's friends that he's around, or he both that our main character is around, I felt like they came across as pretty annoying, especially the guy friend that's around with them. That every time that he was just on screen, he had a lot of annoying dialogue that I just felt like nails on a chalkboard. So that was one of the things that really hindered back from me a lot of the time, because the humor, even though it's good in points, it does have some other stuff that really falls flat a lot of the time that I felt was really not only not funny, but it felt really like very dry and very cheap lines that they give with a lot of the actors involved. And another thing I have a problem with too is the fact that when we set up the premise, it is a good concept. With the whole, because it's basically a dagger that can pretty much do this curse where if you are stabbing someone, you end up switching places with that person. I wish that they could have more went into depth with that, because it seemed like there's a lot of details they really could put more emphasis on to really give us like more of what all this is going on, because it feels very bare basics. And that's one thing I will criticize the writing for, is that not only is the plot itself very minimum, but it's also that other than our main character's like payback that she wants with all her tormentors and stuff, it does feel like that's what all the movie really falters in with that. And there's stuff that I feel like they were missing a lot with, that we could have got more in depth with like, say, with our main character's like past that she mentions. I'm not going to spoil anything, but let's just say that there's something that she mentions about her dad. I felt like there was something that they really probably could have maybe came back on, or maybe resolved probably a little better with when they bring this person up and stuff, and they didn't really put a lot into that with the writing. So there is some things that the movie just really lacks that's very bare basic. So the writing can be pretty hit and miss a lot, and not really as compelling as the movie pretty much goes along, because it's just sticking more to mix into the comedy and the slasher aspects of it. So, but overall though, I will say that it was good to be able to get back in the theater again and watching a film and a slasher film again for once in a while. And I did feel like the movie was entertaining enough to where I still recommend it. And so if you're looking for a fun time, and Vince Vaughn alone really makes the film a lot, and I do suggest checking it out. And if they use this concept and maybe use it in a different film, like in a sequel or something, I wouldn't mind if they maybe expand more on it to maybe give us like, something like a Nightmare on Elm Street type of feel, or some other type of, slasher film that they could probably like kind of do like a spin on it, so to speak, or some other type of like, other type, because if you think about it, this movie itself is more based on the novel by Freaky Friday, which itself was also spawned into several movies, including the one with Jamie Lee Curtis in 2003 and all that. So this whole, like, in and of itself, with the whole body switching, while it's nothing new, it still is a good industry spin on it. So with that being said, I'm going to give the movie a high average Joe on the Film Freaks meter. For those who've also seen Freaky, let me know in the comments below what you thought about it. And thank you so much for watching, and stay safe. And I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.